Don't you dare. Don't you dare.
Who, what, where, why? Let's look at how you killed that guy. It's Knife to Meet You. Who, what, where, why? Let's look at how you did that crime. It's Knife to Meet You.
Hello, and welcome to Knife to Meet You, the weekly serial killer podcast in which we discuss a serial killer you've probably never heard of every week. I'm Zoe. This is Brian.
Hi.
I don't know why I'm talking I'm on a weird radio show where, it's like I'm about to tell you a whodunit kind of. Well, maybe we are.
Well, it's not a whodunit because we know who done it.
Yeah, it's not whodunit question mark. It's whodunit period.
who done it question mark? How done it question mark? Or as our lovely theme song says, who, what, where, when, what. No, I've already forgotten our
who, what, where, why.
Who, what, where, why? Let's find out. Yeah, it's great. How you doing today, Zoe? It's been a little while.
Well,
you sat down to do one of these.
Yeah. Well, I had an interesting situation yesterday where I tried to explain the concept of this podcast to my 90-year-old grandmother.
Oh,
who doesn't understand what the internet is.
Yeah.
So first define a podcast. Then explain what our podcast is about. It was a whole thing. She can't hear, she can't see, so it's it was a whole schmagegi.
Mm-hmm.
But she was like, maybe you should write about something nicer. I was like, okay, Grandma.
That's a very grandma answer.
Yeah. I'm like, all right, that's cool.
Well, thanks, Grandma.
Yeah.
All right. Today, actually, really quickly, I just want to say, because I know we've mentioned this before, that for a while we were recording these at a pretty rapid pace.
Oh, yeah. We were recording 4 hours a day for a while there.
Yeah,
twice a week.
Yeah, it was nuts. So this is actually the first recording that we are doing since the launch of the podcast, which is super duper exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the effort was going into how to do a podcast and not how to promote a podcast. So there's only 5 of you listening right now, but we love you 5.
Absolutely.
We love you guys. Thank you.
And as always, you can find us on Twitter at KTMY Pod. You can find us at Facebook.com/KTMY Podcast, and you can send us an email at KTMYpodcast@gmail.com. Today,
which we haven't mentioned in any of our previous podcasts because they didn't exist at the time.
It's very. Listen, maybe I'll put in some very obvious after recording, and then once you get to this episode, you'll be like, aha, I have learned the lore.
We do have a website, by the way. It's just not cooperating at present. So we're going to just,
I mean, honestly, by the time this episode goes up, the podcast, by the time this episode goes up, the website should be in full cooperation with us. So please visit our website at ktmypodcast.com.
Yay!
Yay!
We did it. We did a thing. Oh, and I also wanted to say that Lobo is doing much better. I don't want to go into too much of her family situation, but it's their family situation has been much improved lately, and I'm hoping that they come back soon. They wanted me to send their love to all of you guys, and I just wanted you guys to know that I was on the phone with them every day of the launch, even though they weren't really able to participate in it with Brian and I. So I just wanted to put that in there.
Absolutely. And I don't know if we've mentioned this directly before, but the Knife to Meet You theme song was lovingly crafted by Lobo themselves. So
not only lovingly crafted, but also lovingly performed.
that's very true. That is Lobo's voice.
It is Lobo's voice, and also Lobo's what do you call it when you make a song?
Instrumentation, right? They're
yeah, I mean it's them playing all the instruments as well,
Yeah.
but also like they composed
the composition. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
It is Lobo's start to finish, and I gotta tell you, I've had it in my head because it's just bum.
It's catchy.
Bum. It's so easy. It's so easy to just
Yeah.
bop along to. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, they're definitely extremely talented. We're so lucky to have them on the podcast. And I'm excited for them to come back. So
All right.
hopefully that will be soon.
Absolutely.
In any case,
I would
I'm
love
happy to be here with Brian too.
Me too.
I
I'm
also
always
love
happy to
Brian.
be with myself. You have to be. You have to be, folks. That's
because you're stuck with yourself forever.
That's right. Knife to Meet You safety tips, folks. Love yourself.
Love yourself. Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
Oh.
Zoe, today I want to talk to you about a guy from Scotland.
Oh no. Okay. All right. I gotta say before we start though, I've known Scotsmen, I've known Englishmen, I've known Irishmen. I don't think I've known a Welshman. They are fucking nuts. In the best possible way. Fucking nuts. And especially after Dennis Nilsson, who is a Scotsman, when you say, I'm here to talk to you about a Scotsman, I'm just like, oh, we in it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So we're going to be talking about a man named Peter Tobin.
Okay. I've never heard of this guy.
Excellent. One thing that I do want to mention very briefly about Tobin is he has a lot of aliases.
Ooh, let's hear them all in a list for him. Alphabetically. No, you don't have to do them alphabetically.
Listen, if I had a list of all 40 plus of them, I would have picked my favorites. I've only got a few of them, though. So I just want to state right from the outset, Peter Tobin used aliases all the dang time. I'm not going to use them just because that's so many. It's false names
like
adding
aliases, like fake names that he would give people.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about like his serial killer, like epithets.
His epithets?
Yeah,
no.
I thought you were gonna be like, yes, the
Glasgow Ripper and
right.
the Hampshire Stabber.
Yeah.
the new.
Well, that one's kind of awkward and doesn't really roll off the tongue, especially when you take into account like a Scottish accent. Like,
well, I mean, listen, if you have 40 epithets, they're not all going to be winners.
To be honest with you, people who only have one epithet, it's not a winner.
I know some people they don't know what they're doing. But he has a lot of assumed names. But throughout this episode, I'm just going to call him Peter Tobin. I am just going to give. I have like 5 or 6 that are relevant from the stuff that we're going to be talking about, but there are dozens more.
So you're not just going to randomly change his name throughout the podcast, because
exactly,
and then be like, and then Tommy here, and it's like, who's Tommy? Peter. Tommy.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah, not doing that. Not doing that today.
AKA William, old Billy Boy.
Right, exactly.
Sorry.
It's okay. You're fine. So just a couple of his aliases: Peter Wilson. Not terribly imaginative, just changed his last name.
But those are the best kind. Like, I hate it when, as a writer, and I'm sure you, because you are also a writer, are aware of this, like, I hate it when people name their characters names that are, like, really symbolic and, like names that no one would ever really have, you know?
I'm McGillicuddy Steel Diver.
Yeah, well, for me, like, my favorite story to tell about this, actually, I have one, if you don't mind. Like,
go for it. Yeah,
a tiny anecdote here. I really hate when people make names that are like ending in like steel or a color or swan or like whatever
yeah, just bonk you over the head with Hulk hand symbolism, like.
Yeah. Like, I maintain to this day that in Pirates of the Caribbean, Will Turner should have just been Will Smith.
Mm.
But we can't do that because of Will Smith.
Yeah.
But what if we had Will Smith in Pirates of the Caribbean? That would have been amazing. I'm getting super sidetracked here. My story was I had an original character that I named, and I named her Kate Malinowski. All right, because that to me, like Kate with a C, Malinowski. And then when I was like 4 years ago, I was file clerking for a law firm, and one of my jobs was to go back through archives of old client files and digitize them. So I would have to go through pages and pages and pages of old cases. And a lot of it was like discovery, and a lot of it was like, all kinds of like paperwork. And I found in one of the old cases, there was an actual person named Kate Malinowski, Kate with a C. And it was like,
you did it.
I dreamed a person into being. What kind of Pygmalion bullshit is this? It was very, very weird situation. I immediately had to tell my paralegal friend, and she was like, well, it just got spooky. Right?
Yeah, no, that's great. That's
so I don't know. I think I like Peter Wilson as an alias. I think that the more ridiculous, the more non-realistic your assumed name is, the more obvious it is that it is an assumed name.
True.
Like Kick-Ass's name is Dave Lazuski, and I was like, that's the best name I've ever heard for a superhero to have.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, because it's
we can't all be Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent and Diana Prince, you know?
No, well, you can't be Diana Prince, sadly.
Right?
No, I mean, look, everyone, all of us.
I'm pretty sure, like, we can be a Dave Lazuski. That's,
Yeah, I could be Dave
saying?
Lazuski. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm in defense of the alias.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not going to defend anything else this guy does. I'm just going to say I think Peter Wilson's pretty good in terms of assumed names.
Okay. Another two aliases are James Kelly and Paul Semple.
All right.
Semple, again, it's a little like, ooh, that's a little odd, but it's not like drawing too much attention to itself. John Tobin, sort of the reverse of the Peter Wilson, just changed his first name. Pat McLaughlin. And
I'm sensing a theme here.
Yeah.
His names are a little bit Irish.
Yeah.
Kelly, McLaughlin. I think even Semple might be Irish. Might be.
I think my favorite of the ones that I have here is Peter Tobin. Proban. Because it's just like, he didn't even try. He's like, my name is Peter Tobin. Yeah. He just changed the first the T to a PR. It's like
when they have someone on a TV show who has to quick think of a fake name, and they just look around the room for objects that are in the room, and they're like, yeah.
So Peter Tobin always used aliases. Mm-hmm. But as per usual, Zoe, I'm going to take you back in time.
Yes. This is my favorite part.
September 24th, 2006.
Oh my god, that's the year that I graduated high school.
Glasgow, Scotland. The Wicker Man remake starring Nicolas Cage continues to scare audiences around the world.
Not the bees! Not the bees!
And the most popular song on Irish airwaves is Justin Timberlake's Sexy Back. And Angelica Kluke is working at St. Patrick's Church. Now,
it's like the only job you can get in Ireland.
Now, Angelica is a Polish student, and she's working as a cleaner in the church to help support the degree in Scandinavian studies she's earning at Gdansk University.
All right, let me just hold on. Okay. Polish girl studying Scandinavia in Scotland.
She's studying Scandinavia in Poland. She is working there over break
Okay.
to earn money to support her degree. She's actually staying with her sister, Anita Kluk, who is a permanent resident in Glasgow.
I see. All right, that makes it slightly less weird.
So she's working on some kind of student visa or working visa as a way to fund her studies back in Poland. Actually, not in Poland, in Gdansk. Where is Gdansk?
Wouldn't it be great if I just knew off the top of my head?
I thought you might.
Listen, just because I'm Eastern European does not mean we all know each other, okay?
Oh no, it is Polish. Okay, that's a city in Poland. Okay, never mind. So she was working at this church, and she was last in the company of Peter Tobin. They were outside a garage where they were both. He was repairing something. She was working on the grounds. Tobin attacked Angelica Kluk and took her into the garage, where he bound, gagged, and beat her with a table leg.
What the fuck?
He raped her and stabbed her 16 times.
With the table leg?
With a knife.
Right. Would be easier. What? He just had like a knife in the fucking garage?
Well, he was a handyman. He probably had a knife for working around. He probably had a knife on his tool belt.
Okay, so... Alright, so you said that he probably had a knife in his toolkit. And I was saying, nuh-uh, because, like, I don't know any handyman who needs to keep a knife in his fucking toolkit. I was like, maybe a screwdriver, but, like, how are you going to stab somebody with a screwdriver? And I was like, oh, that made it worse. Now it sounds kind of shanky. But all of that cut out. You missed, like, all of that.
Oh, I did miss all of that.
But now I'm thinking maybe, like, you need a blade to, like, cut things or something. Maybe he had, like, a Swiss Army knife, but, like, can you imagine being stabbed to death by a Swiss Army knife? That would be fucking terrible. It
would be absolutely horrendous, especially 16 times, because that's a Swiss Army knife, or even like on a Leatherman. That's for like cutting rope and twine and plants and things. It's not for stabbing. That's
my point. I'm thinking any blade that one would have. Don't you dare! Don't you dare!
You were saying?
Any blade that I would think one would have in a handyman's toolkit would not be ideal for stabbing someone because it would be a utility knife. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, very true.
So my point in bringing all this up, though, is not just to be like, oh, I wonder what knife he used. It's because he obviously had stashed a knife on his person or in that garage, and it was a premeditated murder.
Oh, I 100% agree.
So
I 100% agree.
He absolutely was waiting for this bitch to be landscaping, and then, like, fucking just... Oh, alright.
Yeah. So, beaten with a table leg, stabbed 16 times. However, she was likely still alive.
Yeah.
When Tobin buried her in a sort of crawl space.
No.
Underneath the floorboards of the church, in a storage compartment next to the confessional booth.
Oh, okay. All right. I have so many things to say about this, and I don't even know where to start. First of all, that is some Edgar Allan Poe shit. Second of all, Scotland. What is it with your serial killers and hiding the bodies under the floorboards? Third of all, can you imagine, like, fucking you're telling your confession and you're like, I cheated on my husband, or like whatever it is that you're like confessing, and like somebody's like scratching at the floor underneath you or like banging or something. Like, that's just so creepy.
Yeah. So when Angelica didn't come home that night, Anita Kluk reported her missing to Scottish authorities. However, they didn't have any information to give her for about 3 days. Now, I do want to spotlight Anita Kluk really quickly. Anita Anita's Angelica's sister, and she was very instrumental in getting Scottish authorities to move as quickly as they did. And you'll see that because on the 27th, so this is 3 days after her disappearance, Anita Klug goes down there. She talks to them, appealing for more information about her disappearance because they had nothing to give her. But what they did do was sent out a public request for information. Over the next 2 days, the public response was immense, and a lot of people pointed to Tobin as someone who they saw Angelica with.
That is something that I would like to reiterate on this podcast time and again. If one of your loved ones goes missing, God forbid, you have got to be their advocate. You have got to light a fire under the asses of whatever law enforcement are in charge of the investigation, because they don't know your loved one. They don't know if this is a person who is just really flaky and might have just, wandered off for a little bit or run away, or they are reluctant to do anything about anything because they lack any context, and it's so much easier for them to be like, oh, well, this person's a legal adult. If they want to disappear, they can,
right.
So if, something something is wrong, you have to be an advocate.
Absolutely. And thank God Anita Klug was an advocate. Because on September 29th, everything starts happening. Thanks to the public response that the police had gotten, they interviewed Tobin early in the morning.
Okay.
He denies knowing anything about Angelica's disappearance. He actually even denies having seen her that day.
Well, they've got multiple witnesses saying otherwise, so that should have been a big honking red flag.
A bigger red flag would be after the interview, when the police leave him, he fled by airplane to London.
What? No.
Yeah. Like, he within hours of the police interviewing him, he fled to London.
That sounds like something an innocent person would do.
Absolutely. At the same time, when Peter Tobin is on his plane fleeing to London, Scottish investigators find Angelica's body.
Oh, this is still the month that she was killed, right?
This is 5 days after.
Yes, get it. Okay, all right,
yeah.
Yes, all right.
The Scottish police are absolutely killing it, thanks to Anita Klug.
Yes. Yes.
So what happens is they're searching the entire church because they were both known to have been working there. One of the priests, in an interview with police, because they were trying to, find any hidden compartments or anything, as is a good idea to do when you're conducting a search of a building. The priest tells them about the compartment, and lo and behold, they open it up, they shine down, and they find what they think is Angelica Klug's body. After discovery by officers, senior forensic scientist Carol Rogers...
Wait, I'm sorry. Did you just say what they think is Angelica Klug's body?
It has yet to be identified. We know that it is Angelica Klug's body, but the police have yet to identify it.
All right, okay. I thought for a minute that was your clever way of introducing another body.
I promise.
I was like, wait a minute.
No, not yet.
Can't pull a fast one on me.
No, I can't. After discovery by officers, senior forensic scientist Carol Rogers was brought in to recover the remains. Including sample inside of the Crampty and kill for the first time.
Oh, Tobin was 60 years old?
He was 60 years old at the time.
Damn.
Yeah.
All right. I think this is, right now, the oldest serial killer, at the oldest age while perpetrating his crimes that we've discussed so far.
I think you're right, yeah. Yeah, I think you're right.
Man, I would think that serial killing would become, so much more difficult as you get older, all the body dragging and...
Yeah, well, it's, especially as technology gets progressively more advanced, like thinking about somebody who if somebody had a 20-year long killing career and they killed from the time they were 40 to the time they were 60, That's 2 decades. Like, you're talking about someone who started in the 80s, ending in the 2000s, potentially.
Yeah, but you don't just randomly start at age 40.
No, of course. This is just a for instance.
Right.
But it is kind
Although,
of staggering to think about how one would have to advance to mitigate the changing circumstances, especially as law enforcement gets more militarized.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So when they first pull her out of the crawl space, they're not able to identify her body. But they do find Tobin's DNA on her. They release information to the public confirming that the man who had been calling himself Pat McLaughlin was in fact Tobin, a registered sex offender.
Oh, no.
Police, however, can't find him because he's fled to London. However...
So painful.
Anita Klug put this beautifully when she said, "How could police lose track of him in the electronic age?" And we're talking 2006, so this is post 9/11.
Yep.
They had to have scanned his passport. He would have had some sort of, he would have had to travel under his legal name. Now, of course, Tobin had already fled to London by this time. But the police had released a bunch of pictures of him because of the positive DNA match and the positive ID that they had on him. He sees these when he's at a pub in London. He sees that pictures of him have been released, so he panics. What do you think he does, Zoe?
Throw a jacket in someone's face. Pocket sand.
It's honestly dumber than that.
Oh, no.
He picks another fake name and checks himself into a hospital with a fake illness.
Why? How would... Okay.
He goes in and starts describing a list of symptoms that they can't quite identify as one thing or the other, so they just admit him.
Okay.
October 1st, 2006, he was found to be staying in the hospital. One of the hospital workers had identified him and called the police.
Mm-hmm.
And he was placed under arrest by Scotland Yard in London. Once this happens, at the same time, Scottish investigators identify Angelica Klug's body.
Okay.
He's still in the hospital at this time, but he is under arrest, but he's still faking his illness.
I see. So he just doubled down on that.
He sure did. He said, "No, you don't understand. I'm sick. Cough, cough, pop. I think I got a touch of the black lung." Like,
yep.
he's putting a thermometer to his light bulb and everything.
Right.
But eventually the doctors say he's not sick. You can arrest him now. And they do so. They extradite him back to Scotland. And Peter Tobin was tried for rape and murder of Angelica Klug over 6 weeks at the High Court of Edinburgh. And on May 4th, 2007, he was convicted on both counts and sentenced to life in prison with a possibility of parole after 21 years.
So they got him on one count of murder.
Yep. And one count of rape.
Mm-hmm.
And
all right.
So life in prison, minimum 21 years, right?
All right.
Judge Lord Tobias Menzies, who presided over the trial, said this during sentencing, quote, "In the course of my time in the law, I have seen many bad men, and I have heard evidence about many terrible crimes which have been committed, but I have heard no case more tragic, more terrible than this one. The advocate deputy describes what you did to Angelica Klug as an atrocity, and that word aptly describes what you did to this young woman. Any case of rape is serious. Any case of murder is serious. But what you did to Angelica Klug was inhuman. You are, in my view, an evil man.
Well said. Well said.
Beautifully put by Judge Lord Menzies. So, Tobin goes to jail, and that's the end of our story, right?
Of course not. It gets worse.
It gets so much worse.
Oh, man.
While Tobin was in prison, Scottish police, under the leadership of Detective Superintendent David Swindle, form Operation Anagram. Which I love that name, by the way. I love it. And they chose that name because of Tobin's love of aliases. So they form Operation Anagram to investigate Tobin. As forensic... Oh, sorry, I've got sirens. Yeah.
So they, just to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, they have him, he's in prison, he's not getting out, and they open up a task force to investigate a man that they already have in prison in order to find out his previous aliases and previous possible crimes?
That's absolutely correct.
I love it. I love it. There are a lot of, I mean, that would never have happened in America. And
Never.
here in the US, they'd have been like...
Never. Case closed.
Him. Yeah, that's it.
Pat.
Well done.
He'll be our problem in 2027, everybody.
Right? Damn. Fuck it, I'm moving to Scotland.
Right, no kidding. Like, that's incredible to me. And, yeah, I love this. I love the name. I love the concept of the task force to find justice for unknown victims of an already jailed man. I think that's really cool.
That's fantastic. That's the heart of just, that's just everything. That's everything.
Yeah.
All right, so what does Operation Anagram uncover?
So, Operation Anagram ran for a number of years, but we're going to start at the beginning.
A number of years? Wow.
Operation Anagram was formed in 2007, and in June of that year, they began searching Peter Tobin's former home in Bathgate, West Lothian, in connection to the 1991 disappearance of 15-year-old Vicky Hamilton.
Oh, no.
Yes. Vicky was visiting her sister Sharon in Livingston and changed buses in Bathgate. She was last seen eating chips, that's UK chips, not North American chips, on the bus bench. Tobin left his house there just a few days after he disappeared. That is to say, he abandoned his house a couple of days after the disappearance of Vicky Hamilton.
Oh, wow. Like, just left all his shit and just kind of peaced out?
He packed up what he could, and left the city entirely.
Alright. That's suspicious about that.
In July, Operation Anagram investigators discover the remains of Vicky Hamilton. It should be noted that this information was not released to the public until November of the same year, which is after his trial started.
Okay.
Tobin was convicted of the murder of Vicky Hamilton at the end of a month-long trial on December 2nd, 2008, and sentenced to another life term in prison.
All right.
Judge Lord Emsley had this to say during sentencing.
Wait, hold on. Is this the same judge as before?
This is not the same judge. This is a different judge.
All right, sorry.
That's okay. That, Menzies, this is Emsley.
All right, but you can see how they kind of...
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Yeah, all
right. Quote.
Thank you for validating me.
Quote, you stand convicted of the truly evil abduction and murder of a vulnerable young girl in 1991 and thereafter of attempting to defeat the ends of justice in various ways over an extended period. Yet again, you have shown yourself to be unfit to live in a decent society. It is hard for me to convey the loathing and revulsion that ordinary people will feel for what you have done. I fixed the minimum period which you must spend in custody at least 30 years. Had it been open to me, I would have made that period run consecutive to the 21-year custodial period that you are already serving. So I love both of these judges. I love the second one especially because he said, "Look, I'm giving you 30 years. If it were up to me, it would have been 51 total." But apparently, some sort of procedure prevented him from being able to do so.
I am in awe. I am in love. This is United States. Take notes.
Seriously, yeah. Like,
I don't see you writing.
can you imagine this attitude with American resources? Like, how much would get done?
That's a world of pure imagination.
Yeah, no kidding.
I really, it's what it is at its core is an absolute commitment to justice.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's such a departure from that in our country because the commitment is not to justice. The commitment is to political careers and, winning and public opinion and like all this shit.
Well, yeah, like the fact that a district attorney can just decide to not charge somebody with murder in certain jurisdictions is appalling.
Yeah. Or, I don't know, say, decide only to charge them with voluntary manslaughter instead of murder too.
Yeah.
Put that out there.
Voluntary manslaughter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because they just decided they didn't have enough evidence to even try to convict them.
They charged,
even though they fucking killed a man. All right. Anyway,
they charged Jack Kevorkian with several counts of first-degree murder, and not voluntary manslaughter.
Yep.
Pisses me off so much.
Don't get me started. I started myself, but now it's like, okay, I need to stop because I'm gonna go off. All right.
Yeah. Just 9 days after his sentencing, by the way, Tobin did file for an appeal. However, he dropped it in March of 2009.
I don't know if that recorded well, so I'm just gonna repeat it again. What a motherfucker. Oh, all right.
And now we're gonna just briefly shift back to 2007, because this is where they start investigating another murder.
Right.
So in November of 2007...
Wait a minute. He was arrested for the murder of Angelica Klug in 2006.
Correct.
So in 2007, he was already in prison.
Yes.
So he could not possibly have committed a murder in 2007.
No, he committed the murder in 1991. That's when Vicky Hamilton disappeared.
Oh, okay. All right. Yes, I'm with you now. Okay. All right. If we could just all pretend that I'm not stupid, that'd be great.
We don't have to pretend you're not stupid.
Thank you.
You're welcome. At the same time, the renewed Vicky Hamilton murder investigation was going on. Operation Anagram investigators were also searching another of Tobin's previous homes.
Okay.
While searching there, they found the body of Dinah Nickel.
Dinah?
Dinah. Dinah.
Oh.
Yeah.
How old is she?
I was not able to find her age. I am assuming she is an adult because she was traveling with her boyfriend hitchhiking. However, I could be incorrect about that. So Dinah was hitchhiking with a male friend. Some sources say boyfriend, some say male friend. From a music festival in Hampshire. After the driver, Peter Tobin, had stopped her friend off at Reigate and kept driving with her, Dinah was never seen again.
Jesus.
Tobin was formally charged on September 1st, 2008, with a trial beginning in June of the next year. It was briefly stayed in July as Tobin was undergoing intensive surgery, and was deemed not fit to stand trial, so the jury was temporarily disbanded.
Okay.
That is, however, until December 14th of 2009, when the... Gosh. I want to say Helmsford. Oh, it's Scottish, that'd be correct. Yeah. When the Helmsford Crown Court reopened the case, they provided Tobin's defense an opportunity to provide evidence as to why he had not done this murder they were charging him with.
Mm-hmm.
And so during that entire time, from June to December of 2009, he had all this time. His defense had all this time to put together a case. They provided absolutely nothing, and he was convicted in 2 days.
Wow. Okay. They didn't even try.
Yeah,
right.
he had a 2-day trial. The prosecution presented their evidence, and then the defense has no evidence. Guilty. Gavel slam. Like, amazingly efficient.
All right. Cool.
And he was sentenced to his 3rd consecutive life prison sentence. But he is still eligible for parole. All right. So yeah, he was sentenced to his 3rd consecutive life prison sentence. Operation Anagram continued to track Tobin's movements throughout his life, attempting to tie him to 13 additional murders in places he's known to have lived, as well as nearly 50 murders he has bragged about committing while he's been in prison.
Of course.
Of course. However, due to any lack of new evidence, as well as the degradation of existing evidence, mostly due to poor storage, especially things dating back to the 60s, Operation Anagram wound down, but has not been disbanded as of 2011. Peter Tobin is still alive at Her Majesty's Prison, Edinburgh, and he will turn 75 this year.
Okay, so so they were only able to give him 3 consecutive sentences. They were only able to get him on 3 murders.
Right.
And he's bragging that he's killed how many women?
Not necessarily women, but upwards of 50 people.
I see.
Additional, so more than 50. He is taking credit for more than 50 murders.
All right then.
Yeah. So that's Peter Tobin. One of the things to me that's really interesting about the way that we look at these cases, and it's one of the reasons why I like looking at international cases sometimes, is because you get to see that difference in investigation as well as the difference of the court process. Like when we talked about the True Row killers, Miller and Worrell, we were talking about how effective their searching was on the Swamp Road lands where they found all those bodies, because they were doing shoulder-to-shoulder, hands and knees searches.
Yeah.
And a guy is convicted of murder in 2 days? That's amazing. Because they have the evidence, obviously. They have it. They it's really, really interesting to see those differences and to see how much of an attitude difference there is.
Yeah.
It's an ethos thing, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. God, I wish we could have something like that here. Unfortunately, you can have someone on video committing the murder and still take weeks to convict them. Anyway,
if they even get charged.
Yeah. So,
this is the part of the show where we are going to talk about Tobin's early life, talk about his personal life, and we're going to go through the PCLR checklist. So if that
as
is
well
not...
as, if possible, the McDonald triad. I always want to say the Ronald McDonald triad. I don't know why my brain does that, but it does it every episode. I need you guys to know that.
Chicken McNuggets, fries, cheeseburger. That's the Ronald McDonald triad. Or in our case, iced coffee, apple pie, fillet of fish.
Right? Okay. So, what do we know about Peter's early childhood and his life before, presumably,
school for criminally delinquent children.
At age 7?
Yes.
What? You can't be criminally delinquent at age 7?
Well, bear in mind, this is 1953. So we're talking. So no, yeah. So this is 1953. So this is right post World War II.
So did he not say, his pleases or thank yous properly, and so they decided, all right, we're shipping you off to reform school.
It's not entirely certain why he was sent there. It does. I do know that it was, quote, troubled, but that is not gone into in any of the sources that I've gone through for this episode. He spent a few years in this reform school, and then he was later. He spent a number of years in a young offender institution, so he was in juvie.
Mm-hmm.
And was jailed several times through his teenage years for burglary and forgery.
Mm. So, what I'm hearing is he's already got a wide variety of criminal skill sets.
Absolutely, he does. In 1969, at the age of 23, he married his 17-year-old girlfriend, Margaret.
At the age of how old?
He was 23, and she was 17.
Not okay.
Not okay. Not okay.
Not okay.
Guys, anybody out there? Ladies, too. Not okay. Just not cool. That's a child.
Yep.
Margaret L.R. Mountney. They were married in August of that year, and they divorced in 1971. 2 years later, he married another woman, a nurse, by the name of Sylvia Jeffries. They had a son and a daughter. The daughter sadly died at birth.
Oh, no.
This second marriage, which was... The second marriage, which was violent, aggressive, and abusive, lasted until 1976 when she fled with their son. Then he had a relationship with a woman named Kathy Wilson, who gave birth to another son of his in 1987, and he married her 2 years later. She was 17.
Yikes.
So he knocked up a 16-year-old and then married her after she had his baby. In 1990, they moved to Bathgate, West Lothian, which is where Vicky Hamilton disappeared from. Wilson left Tobin in 1990 and moved back to Portsmouth. Sorry. In 1990, she moved with her and Tobin's son, back to Bathgate with West Lothian. Wilson left Tobin in 1990, moved back to Portsmouth, Hampshire, where she had grown up. All three of his wives gave similar accounts of meeting and falling for and then having to endure Tobin. They said that he was charming, he was well-dressed, he was very sweet and affectionate and playful. However, he turned violent and sadistic once they were married, and several times before then, even before he he was known to have been violent privately with them. And then in 1991, after the disappearance of Vicky Hamilton, he moved to Margate and then Hampshire to be near his younger son. In 1993, Tobin attacked two 14-year-old girls who were babysitting his son at his flat in Hampshire.
What the fuck?
He held them at knife point and forced them to drink hard cider and vodka. He then sexually abused and raped them. To avoid arrest, Tobin went on the run and hid in a religious retreat in Warwickshire under a false name, but he was recognized and arrested and actually appeared on BBC's Crime Watch of that year. He was sentenced in May of 1994. He pleaded guilty and received a 14-year prison sentence. He was released in 2004.
Wow.
So, troubled childhood, reform school, juvie, marriage, kid, prison, church, prison again. Because he was only out for 2 years before he was arrested for the murder of Angelica Kluke.
Let's see. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot to process. I'm just like okay then.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I keep, as I've been reading about this guy, and my research has been a little bit more split than it usually is, because I thought we were doing this last week, this recording, that is. Every time I read more about this guy, I go back to what investigator Carol Rogers says: you don't get to 60 and kill for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's always true. It's always how it is. But even just saying it now, it's like, that is still kind of chilling. Because somebody saw one victim and immediately said, there's more.
Well, that's a person who knows their shit. That's why we do Knife to Meet You, you know?
Absolutely.
So that we have someone say, there's more to this. There's more here.
Yeah.
And, you know, so that we can uncover and stop this madness and give justice to the victims of it. Wow. All right.
Undoubtedly. So let's go ahead and, Zoe, you want to guide us through the PCLR?
Yeah, well, I don't think we can really do the McDonald triad because I don't think that we have any really information about his time as a child because he was in reform schools.
Yes, and that's the other thing is I have the urge to do a lot of speculation about why he may have been put in reform school, because I have, you know, just that inclination. I want a more complete story, you know?
Yeah. But it was the 50s,
when you think about it, it's 1953. They could have sent him to reform school for being left-handed. Like,
yeah.
Shout
and
out
those
to my
places
lefties,
were
by the way.
crazy abusive. Those places are still crazy abusive. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got people like, you know, Paris Hilton and, God, what's the name of that girl that was on Dr. Phil that said, "Cash me outside"? How about that?
Oh, Danielle something?
I think her last name was like Paglia or Braglia or something. But Dr. Phil sent her to like a ranch. That's like a reform, and another girl that was there with her got raped.
Yeah.
And you know, she's using her platform to come out and support this other girl, and everyone's like,
oh no, it's like, yes, the "cash me outside, how about that" thing was dumb and it's funny.
Right.
But we can set that aside while this person is drawing attention to systemic abuse that is being enabled by a multi-millionaire celebrity. We can set that aside for a sec.
Right. And it's just, there's so many of these schools, and they are so horrible. I mean, if you listen to some of the accounts that these kids, I mean, they were kids, were made to endure.
Yeah, it's a lot of parents, and it's the same thing for these like fake military schools.
Yeah.
That it's basically just a kid jail.
Yeah.
Like how kids think of high school is what those places actually are. They're like literal like child prisons where you ship your kid off to for 6 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And then they come back without a personality and just doing what you say, and then they turn into a fucking sociopath. It's like, oh, how'd this happen?
I mean, you don't turn into a sociopath,
I'll
but
get that, you're right. But
yeah,
but they come out disaffected, and people wonder how that happens.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So, his wives all attested to the fact that he was, super charming and glib, and like that was a thing for him that, or about him that, was a trait that he possessed. So I honestly feel pretty confident issuing a 2, like right off the bat.
For glib and superficial charm, 100%.
Yes. So what I haven't heard is really anything that he has said about himself. Did he ever release any statements about what he's done? Has he ever spoken to interviewers? Has he ever, did he testify? Is there any documentation of things that he has said about himself?
I found no documentation. I didn't find court transcripts of anything that he personally said.
So there's really no way for us to know then about his estimation of self. We have no idea what he thinks of himself because we have no idea what he thinks. He hasn't said anything.
Certainly, yeah. Or
maybe he has, but it's not been published for us to study. So
yeah, and I think even examining his patterns of crime, and even his post conviction, he appealed it and then he dropped it less than 2 weeks later. So he was probably, I'm assuming, convinced by his legal counsel, because he did have legal counsel, that there was just no way for that to work.
I don't think we have enough to do a PCLR here, because we have no idea what this guy thinks of himself, what his need for stimulation was, if he was a pathological liar. I mean, we know that he consistently used aliases, so you could make a case for that. But cunning and manipulativeness, lack of remorse or guilt, shallow affect, all of these things have to do with an understanding of this guy's personality, and we have no representation of that.
True. Which I honestly think is a bit of a credit to Scottish authorities.
I mean, on the one hand, yes, but on the other, I feel like that not being able to learn from these cases and not having it be public knowledge makes it difficult for us to educate ourselves and to come to a larger understanding as an informed public, which I know is kind of an oxymoron, but the whole point of this is that there are so many killers out there, and when you look at how they've been historically caught, when you look at the cases of caught serial killers, it's like, well, they could have been caught sooner if we had a better understanding of how they worked.
Right.
And, or this person, their life could have been saved if they had only known XYZ thing.
Right.
And so a large portion of it is just an uninformed public.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that if more people understood how serial killers operate, how they think, that it could contribute to a better law enforcement community, and that it could contribute to a safer environment, hopefully. I mean, that's obviously
Absolutely, yeah.
what I hope for, but might not be attainable.
Well, I agree completely. I think that, and also I think bringing the interest of everyday people, the interest that people have every day around these criminal behaviors outside of purely the realm of entertainment, because a lot of people get into true crime through TV or movies, and then you sort of you have that not necessarily evolution, but you have that transition, right?
But so much of TV and movies is inaccurate.
That's exactly.
And the false
I agree.
information is so dangerous.
That's exactly my point, and that is why we, as an edutainment program at Knife to Meet You, seek to serve both of those needs.
Like, I was briefly considering doing the Cleveland torso killer as a case on Knife to Meet You, and I decided ultimately not to do that because the case is still unsolved. And how can you study a killer that you don't even know who they are? You know?
Yeah. No,
it's still a very interesting case. I might later decide, just knowing the killer and that we only have, what we have. But my point is, they brought in Elliot fucking Ness to figure out who this killer was. For those of you who don't know, Elliot Ness was a member of part of the FBI, but he's the guy that brought down Al Capone. And his answer to the situation was, well, seems like this guy is getting all of his victims out of this shanty town. Let's burn it down.
Whoa.
And he did. That's what he did. He burned down the entire neighborhood where thousands of disenfranchised. This is like right on the heels of the Great Depression, by the way. And to me, that is first of all, that's not how you keep evidence. That's how you destroy evidence. Okay, Mr. Ness, I don't know if you know how to investigate shit, because that's not how you do that. But it left so many people homeless and disenfranchised. What they could have learned, everything went up in smoke.
Yeah, because they literally just burned it down.
And it's because he didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And if
yeah,
there were so many cases, especially when I'm, you guys know I'm all obsessed with the behavioral analysis unit of the FBI, and that a lot of the cases that I've done have been during the evolution of what was known at the time as the behavioral science unit, on which Mindhunters was based and all that. Because to me, it's fascinating how we came to understand what this is, how we came to know that this was something that needed to be studied, what we've learned from that, and how it could have been of a benefit earlier on. You're looking at so many different instances in which the killers could have been stopped sooner, lives could have been saved if we were better educated, if we took that education seriously, if we really tried to buckle down and get a better understanding of the situation. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'll get off my soapbox now. Sorry.
No, I honestly, I thought you would say that about this case, and I agree with you completely. There's a lot of pieces missing. And here's where the surprise comes in.
Oh, my.
So, Peter Tobin, as I stated previously, was at one point being investigated for 13 more murders that police believed could be traced to him because of where he was living at the time. This is not necessarily reflective of the list that he bragged about in prison, but these are 13 that investigators were actively working on. The interesting thing about Peter Tobin and his pattern and the way that he killed people and the way that he escaped afterwards is also highly reminiscent of another Scottish serial killer by the name of Bible John.
Bible John. Oh, don't even get me started on Bible John. Okay, now you have to tell me. Obviously, 7 siblings, he was Catholic. And reform school suggests that his family might have been religious and wasn't tolerating any behavior that was not seen as on the up and up. Was he a redhead? Did he have red hair?
Zoe, I would be more than happy to tell you everything I know about Bible John on the next exciting episode of Knife to Meet You.
Oh, God.
Secret two-parter you didn't know was coming. Here we are. Boom.
I can't even be mad because Bible John is such a good case. I can't even be mad.
It's gonna be great. I'm so excited.
Oh my God, you're suggesting that they might have caught Bible John. This is... okay.
Now,
Bible John is a case that's much like the Cleveland Torso Killer that I just brought up earlier, is was it Scottish or English serial killer that...
UK, generally.
UK, yeah. That was never solved. And to think that, they might have incidentally caught Bible John and never realized that he was Bible John is a fucking, my brain just...
Yeah. There are a lot of people who think that. I have a book coming in that was written by a Scottish journalist that lays out his connections to the case. Really excited about that.
Oh, man.
We are going to have such an amazing time on our two-parter about Peter Tobin, possibly AKA Bible John, ? Okay,
but you never told me. You have to tell me, is he a redhead, though? Is he a redhead? That's the only question I need answered on this episode today.
Zoe, he's very much a redhead.
Oh, fuck me! Oh, shit! Oh!
Listen, we're going to have an amazing time next week, and so are you, listeners. But until then, it's been so nice to meet you.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode, and as usual, please, comment, rate, subscribe, whatever it is you got to do
go ahead
let us know what's going on.
Go ahead and follow us on Twitter at KTMY Pod. Go ahead and like our page on Facebook, facebook.com/KTMY Podcast. Send us an email at ktmypodcast@gmail.com.
Until then, I'm Zoe, and this is Brian.
Have a good week, guys.
Bye.